welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. It might be the off-season for many of us, but have you considered grayling fishing in the UK at this time of year? Known as the Lady of the Stream, the grayling are best fished for in winter time, and Mark Driver, one half of Piscari Fly, has plenty of experience fishing for them in Wales in the winter months. And he joins us on this week's show to give us the ins and outs of where and how to catch grayling on the fly. But first time, I believe you've done some grayling fishing yourself.
Yeah, I did, Dara. And same area that Mark is talking about there. But it's a while back now. First cap I qualified for World Championships in 2000 was in Sweden. And as Mark mentions, there's a lot of grayling in Scandinavia. And of the lot of us on the team, none of us had ever caught a grayling before. So we arranged to go over to the Welsh Sea and over 2 weekends. And funny enough, actually, Peter was on that team as well.
No way.
Yeah. So we arranged and we got over. So this would have been 2000, 24 years ago, and went over and under the guidance of Gwilym Hughes, he brought us out on the Welsh Sea, and it was absolutely fantastic. I think I was mentioning it there beforehand. There was one run I was coming down and going up, and I was fishing an F-fly. Just started fishing an F-fly. It was on dries, but it was interesting because it was July of the year, so there was fly around. I brought up 6 grayling. I didn't touch one of them. I think I was on a size 12 or size 14 F-fly. And Gwilym, and I won't do the Welsh accent, took me aside and he says, "Now, Tom, go up that run again. But here, use this." And he went to size smaller. It was either size smaller. It was either 14 or 16. But it was definitely a smaller F-fly. Exact same color. I only rose 4 fish the next time I went up. I got all 4 of them. It was brilliant. It was fantastic by him. He was very good. Showed us a lot of things to do in it. And here's the thing, like I was saying to you there, I remember saying that, we have to go back. We have to go back. And it's so close and so easy. And I haven't been back since.
24 years later.
Yeah, I know. But can only highly recommend it. And Mark talked about it there. It's great to see that hopefully you start doing trips to it, because, sometimes it's easier to do that way.
Yeah.
It really is. If you can go under somebody else's sort of care, that you don't really have to worry about. You're not too, am I doing the right thing? Am I going the right place? Is this a good place to stay? It takes away all that worry of it.
It's a nice time of year. It's, November, it's winter's not as cold these days now anyway,
and shortens the off season.
Yeah. You get a bit of, and it's another species you can meet marking off the bucket list. And I think Mark says
have you ever caught one?
No, never.
Have you not
seen? Well, I've only seen them in the magazines or online. I've never been near them.
Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful, and there is that faint smell of thyme off.
Really?
Their Latin. Yeah, their Latin name, the Salvinius. It's like I'm trying to pronounce a Welsh name now. Salvinius thyminus. So it's something of thyme, and there is that faint smell of thyme off. But they're absolutely beautiful. Oh, they're just beautiful. And Mark mentions it there when you're fighting them, that huge dorsal fin that they have. They just spread that out and it catches the current.
Yeah.
So you're fighting that as well.
It's an amazing fish. And again, I asked Mark about this and he explains that, where they're found. And I'm just fascinated with the fact that we never had them here. And, despite efforts, maybe it's just, no, you have to go.
Yeah, and I wonder were efforts. Yeah, he mentions it there, and no doubt there probably were.
Yeah.
And other fish that have here have been a lot more successful in taking root, but grayling just don't seem to have.
Yeah, so you have to go to Wales or Scotland or Europe as well. But yeah, Wales, as Mark gets into, you'll hear it. He talks about it.
As he says, it's so easy.
Yeah, and you could get a 2-day trip. Total cost might be $250.
Yeah.
You get a weekend out of it, and it sounds like a bit of crack, as well. So, a great trip to be had. So, look, I think it's a really interesting one for those of you who are looking to kind of maybe explore, and it's not that far, and maybe something to do in the off season as well. So, I do think you will get a lot out of it, and Mark really goes into detail in terms of tactics and setup. So, hope you enjoy this episode. So, let's get back to this week's guest, Mark Driver, to tell us all about the grayling.
As we all know, grayling is not native to Ireland. We've travel a good bit part of Europe and different parts of the world fishing for them, as they are native species to other areas. They are fantastic fish to catch. They are known as the Lady of the Stream. for their beautiful colours. Even though they're not all ladies, there is males, females, obviously, because they reproduce. But yeah, they're the UK, Scotland, Wales, England. You have different countries across Europe. France, Italy, Slovakia, Slovenia, Montenegro, Bosnia, all top destinations for them. So,
Do we have any idea actually why they never came to Ireland?
there is I think I've heard that going back many, like maybe a couple hundred years ago, that they were connected in some. I could be wrong in saying this, but from what I've heard and read, that there was something about them on some waterways many years ago. But just mostly the reports is that our rivers can't sustain the type of grounds and riverbeds that the fish need. A lot of our rivers are too limestoney and don't have the right breeding grounds and stuff like that for the fish to sustain here. So, and that's a lot of the reason. And I don't think they just haven't been introduced this far across. Like, so I think they might have tried it many years ago. I don't know, by maybe not inland fisheries, but different organisations a long time ago, and it just didn't work out.
Well, I suppose maybe if it's topography, then should that make sense? Then there's an actual scientific, and it wasn't St. Patrick or anything like that, anything to do with it. So, just in terms of Europe, then they're not found in France or Spain or those kind of parts of Europe?
Spain, I don't think so. Mostly trout in Spain. Could be a bit hot climate wise. In France, they are in France, all right. I was over in France earlier this year. Got a few small grayling where we were practicing in the rivers for the Five Nation Championships. But there is other regions in France that does hold them. Maybe not to as great of numbers as other countries like Bosnia or Montenegro or Slovakia or the UK. Then you have the Scandinavian countries as well. So you have Norway, Finland, Iceland, Greenland, some top fishing up there as well. So
on that basis, then, in terms of why is the winter period the kind of most popular for grayling?
It's a lot of it's down to do with metabolism. Like during the summer months, they can still be got. Most countries kind of open up their fishing from kind of May onwards, because they kind of hibernate kind of between mid to end of February till roughly May. Some countries don't open the fishing up until about June. I know in Slovenia, the end of May is when the grayling fishing starts. It can still be quite good, the fishing. They still got a good fight. They are fish at the end of the day, but the winter months, like you see it in Austria at the moment and other Scandinavian countries where they're being caught now. Scandinavia, their kind of seasons close kind of mid-October. In Norway, I think it's the 15th of October. But the winter months, their metabolism is higher. They thrive more. They're feeding more. They're gorging on food, and they grow at a better rate. And they just seem to come on a bit more. It's just the height of the season. Same for trout. That the height of the season for trout can be June, July. They're up at the top of their runs. They're feeding here in Ireland, and stuff. So it's the same for the grayling. Like they drop back in the winter months with the colder weather into kind of the deeper pools, but they gorge more and feed more.
And Mark, are they spring spawners?
They'd be they're gorging right up to February, and then it's kind of between February and May. That's when they're hibernating, same as the trout, and that they're spawning and stuff like that. Then
Right.
So it's just the way their metabolism. Obviously, different countries. It's a little bit different, but from what I know across Europe and especially the UK, that's the way they work.
So the winter's the time then to target them, and which is also nice because it's the off season, so for trout.
Yeah, you want to be well wrapped up and make sure you have the right gear, but it's challenging. It can be very cold, but it is rewarding once you keep moving and searching for them and catching. As you know, your adrenaline's up a little bit, so. You mind the cold too much.
Is it getting more popular, Mark, for Irish fly anglers?
Yeah, well, I know a lot of guys that go over here from Kildare and Leinster and different places in Ireland that travel across to different parts of Wales and Scotland. I know at the moment we'll talk about the Hannick Grayling Festival soon, but like this year there's 5 Irish teams going. Up until only a couple of years ago, there was 3-man teams going. So there's an interest building, and it's kind of spreading. And like I have friends of mine. I've been over on 2 recent practice trips, and we've had a few friends tag along to come and go fishing. I know there's a few people that want to go over in January with us. We're talking about going over to do a bit of a trip, so they're looking forward to kind of coming over to see what it's about. So catching a greyling on
Yeah,
their
it's
bucket
one of those.
list.
And so tell me, like, Wales obviously is popular, and I suppose that's a lot maybe to do with the fact that it's handy in terms of the boat or whatever. Tell us about Wales.
Yeah, Wales. We go to a spot called Llangollen. There's a Welsh way of pronouncing, but that's kind of the best way.
I'll go on, give the stab, Mark. Go on.
Llangollen. So there's not too much difference, but even at that, it's a bit raw. But yeah, it's North Wales. It's only about an hour and 10 minutes from Manchester Airport. Same from Liverpool Airport. If you go from Holyhead with the ferry, it's about an hour and a half. And that's kind of where we focus most of fishing, or I have anyway, because I've been kind of only introduced to the Hannock Grayling Festival, and yeah, just I haven't gone down to any South Wales. There is other rivers I've been invited to go fish, just haven't got around to it yet. But the River Dee is a famous river for its grayling fishing. It's like the River Nore here in Kilkenny. It's just stuffed with trout, and same with the Dee. It's just stuffed with grayling. There's some fantastic numbers of little fish throughout the river. You have Tree Club. Well, there's a couple of private clubs and syndicates along it as well, but you have the Llangollen Miler Angling Club. Then you're working up into the Caddick, which is the Coran Club. And then you have Bala Club then as well, which is kind of the upper street reaches up the River Dee. It's a bit more narrow, but there is kind of bigger fish up there to be got as well. So, but yeah, it's a fantastic venue to go. We normally do a 1 day trip is a bit difficult. Fly out that morning, fly back that night. But no, a 2 day trip is quite affordable. Between everything, flights, car hire, accommodation, your fishing permits, you're looking at maybe your dinner or maybe a couple of beers. You're looking at maybe around €250
That's
for
not
2 days
bad.
fishing. No, so it's just to do something different
Yeah,
in the winter months.
yeah,
It's
big
not very
time. And
good.
in terms of access to the waters, is like there's obviously quite a few waters there available. Is it easy access for non-members, and kind of what costs are you looking at?
Yeah, so the Caddick Club in Coran, it's a private club. You have to join it. I was invited to join it a couple of years ago, and I've stayed in it to support the club, even though I only maybe get over a couple of times a year. But it's a nice club to be part of. They're very, very nice club and committee and members. But mostly you have the Llangollen Club waters, and then you have the Bala. So it's either side of the Caddick Club waters. Llangollen, you're looking at paying about 20. I think it's gone up to £24, but it could be wrong. It could be still £22 for the day ticket. You have a lot of water to fish. They have a website, they have a Facebook page. Very easy to access. You can buy the tickets online. There is a hardware near the Hans Hotel in Llangollen town near the main street. You can go and buy your day ticket there as well. Then you have Bala. There's a fishing shop in the main street of Bala. I won't try to pronounce the name of that shop. But they're about £18 for a day ticket. They have some great water there as well. They've actually 2 rivers. They've a tributary river running into the Dee in case the Dee's in
Brilliant.
floods.
Okay, so it's very affordable, like very, very affordable. And in terms of, is it heavily fished? Because obviously it's a quite, if everybody's looking in the winter time to go there, what's it like?
In the main, like the Llangollen part of the water, it's a very wide river. Like it's very rarely we come across too many anglers. Maybe leading up to the Hannock Grayling Festival, we'll see teams out practice and stuff like that. But like on our recent 2 trips we've been, I maybe came across 2 other anglers on each of the trips. Like so, and mostly they were salmon anglers. So we've actually had all the grayling fishing to ourselves in a way. So we're quite lucky. So you'll bump into a few people, but you just meet them and greet them. And
When you mentioned salmon anglers there, just wondering then, Mark, do you concentrate mainly on the winter, or do you head over in July and August ever?
I've gone over in August before. I've been
Yeah.
meaning to go over because I got the Caddick membership. I've been meaning to go over for their trout fishing because they have some brilliant trout and sea trout fishing. But yeah, August I've gone over to do a bit of practice a couple of years ago. Went over for a 4 day stay. And I was quite surprised with the grayling, the way they were behaving. We actually had some fabulous fishing. Normally, grayling we would be very spread out that time of year. as it comes into the winter months, they seem to pad up a bit more, and shoal a bit more. But yeah, that's you can fish all year long from, obviously you said, from May or June onwards, but it can be a bit more like trout fishing for the grayling earlier, or in the summer months, because they're a bit more spread out. But you still get great fishing, especially great dry fly fishing for them as well. So
Maybe just describe the kind of the landscape. I'm trying to picture, like, in terms of the rivers and the landscape, like what's the equivalent in terms of Irish?
yeah, it's I think I sent you a picture. It's they call it the valleys. So there's just valleys after hills and meadows, and it's just a winding bends. If you even are driving on the road along the river to get to different areas, dropping points to the river, like it's just fast hills, mountains. So you're just fishing down between the valleys, and there's this lovely river just in between, and there's trees
It
either
reminds me of the
side.
Blackwater, actually, Mark. Just looking at that picture you sent me, it just reminded me of the Blackwater.
Yeah, it'd be very similar to Blackwater.
Very similar.
The lower parts of the Nora and Thomastown. There's different. There is parts where it's a bit more kind of gorgy and stuff like that, but like the majority of the Welsh D is just meanders of hills, really, and
It's
fast
pretty.
fields.
It's pretty lovely. I fished it years back. I fished in a
For
Corwin
for
years back.
Grayling, Tom, was it?
Yeah, for Grayling. And yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. It's like what you said. It's that meandering in amongst the valleys. It really is. It's beautiful. And actually, when you said pictures there, just looking at it, yeah, just reminded me, because like it's 20 years since I was there. But
Yeah.
beautiful.
So tell us, tactics, setups, and approach. Give us the lowdown on that, Mark.
Tactics, you won't go wrong with a 10-foot 3-weight nympho rod if that's what you want to do. If you're dry fly fishing, I would probably stick to something similar weight as well for tip and protection. But you'll get away with your normal river dry fly rods here, like 9-foot 5-weights and stuff like that. For me, winter months, the grayling. One thing that we've learned about the grayling is if the river levels here, the grayling are always on the bottom. They can't, their body's not built to stay up in the water and hover here like trout are, say, just inches under the surface. So grayling want to come up and take something, they have to take it, but they have to, they'll slowly make their way back down to the bottom. So a lot of the time, and especially as it gets colder in the winter months, the grayling don't look up as much, obviously because we have a lower sun and there's not as much hatches coming off because there's not as much heat on the water. So I'm mostly targeting the grayling on the bottom. But I will be set up for dries in case they do come up. But yeah, normally just looking at nympho rods. So we have our Piscari Venator, which is a 10-6 2-weight. We've been using. I started using the demos last year and used them this year. So far in practice. But normally, prior to this going over, I would normally have a 10-foot 3. To combat with kind of the heavier bugs. And you're fishing somewhat more of an aggressive leader. So you just have a tapered nymph leader, 0.30 down to maybe 0.22. You don't want to go too light, because you'll find with the heavier nymphs and stuff, your leader will start lapping the top of the rod, and things like that. You want to have that bit more aggressive control with your nymphs. Wet flies will work. Again, if the fish are looking up, you'll get them on wets. Dry flies, but nymphing wise, you have your 10-foot 3-weight or 10-foot 2-weight, you'll get away with it. So I know a few guys that do come over, they fish with 10-foot 4-weights. You just have your standard reel, or if you want a semi-automatic, is what we fish with. And then a lot of it then is just down to your flies and your techniques. So flies you're looking at as the colder months set in. Normally the first frost, I've been told by a lot of locals over there, the salmon will start to release their eggs. And it's when it's the first proper hard frost, so then the salmon start to spawn them, and the grayling kind of start to move on to more colourful flies and start to gorge on eggs and stuff like that. So we would have some colourful kind of caddis patterns, shrimps, eggs. I would always, you can fish two flies or 3 flies nymphing. It's not really known to nymph 3 flies here in Ireland, but over there you're fishing winter waters. There's more. There's not a tinge, you have that winter kind of tinge going through the river, and then you have the pressure of the water. So sometimes you need those 3 nymphs to help you get down. They don't necessarily all have to be super heavy. When I'm tying my bugs, I'm always tying them a little bit heavier than I would here in Ireland, because you want to combat that winter push in the rivers over there. So having those you can have heavier flies with maybe a couple of smaller flies up behind them. That can work very well, or say a 4 mil with a bit of lead in the body on the top dropper, and then 2 flies down towards the point can be effective as well. So in terms of techniques, then you're just, Peter would agree as well with me. You don't need to fish far away unless you're trying to focus on a glide on the far side of a run. Then yeah, you can cast that bit further and cover the water. But really, within 2 or 3 rod lengths of yourself in the river is all that you really need to focus on. The grayling are very enthusiastic fish. They kind of use you as a source of food as well as protection, but they're also heightened by the vibrations that you're making as you're moving through the river, you see. It's like a stimulus to them. So they're interested and intrigued, and they'll come from far sides of the river. If you give them time, it's about being patient in the river. You're not trout fishing, moving up through a river too fast. You get into the river, you just take your time, and in time the grayling will come within an area of you within 2 to 3 or 4 rod lengths.
As you said, they behave completely differently to trout. In fact, you could say they're not as spooky as trout. They don't get as spooked as trout.
They can be a little bit silly at times, but like you can literally walk right on top of them, like within reason. In saying that, but they can stay very close to you. They literally, sometimes they could be on the top of your bootlaces. They get that close. They're so intrigued with your vibrations.
I remember that fishing in Slovenia, and I think you can't do it anymore. But Rock, the guide, was showing us, right, and basically we were doing the shuffle on the gravel with your boots, and that's releasing food down to them, and they actually were situated behind us. It was amazing. And then what he had us doing was catching our leader between our knees, right?
Yeah.
And we would just hold it and shuffle, and our knees close together was holding the leader, right? And as soon as we could see the grayling feeding, we just spread our knees apart, release the fly right into their path, and bang. Yeah, it was amazing.
It is no.
Yeah. This is
against the rules for us, though.
Yeah.
And was this all visual, Tom?
I was
just thinking kids would love that, wouldn't they?
Like,
you don't even need to cast,
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, it really was. But actually, in all fairness, now, and it wasn't competition when we were doing that. I don't think it was illegal then. It is illegal now.
Yeah, a lot of reasons especially in the Welsh Dee, because it's renowned for its salmon fishing as well, and they have a high population of salmon to go through the river. It's looked upon because you could possibly disturb
the reds,
salmon, the reds, yeah. So
that's true. It's very interesting you say there. I'd never thought of it that salmon eggs would feature largely in their diet.
The guy that I'm on the team this year, Rob Redmond, me, Peter, and Rob, Rob would target a lot of big grayling, or he knows how to find the grayling, the bigger grayling. And a lot of it is he knows where the salmon lie, and he focuses on that, not to catch the salmon, but because the salmon will be here and the grayling will be right behind them, waiting for them to spawn. And that's you can pick up some good grayling that way. Now, I haven't really learned that too much yet, but it's a work in progress. But for the competition, I'm not trying to get the biggest fish, but it is nice to pick up a few nice ones at the same time. It's interesting, all right. Like some of the egg flies he's given me to tie are peculiar, so I never tied them before.
Oh God, I love a peculiar fly.
Yeah. So, I'd be thinking of eggs that we'd fish for, like stockies, rainbows during the.
Are they not like that? No. I immediately thought like the egg fly with the little bead in between. No, they're not like that. No.
They will work, but they're different, all right. So.
What kind of average size would you be talking about?
In the Welsh Dee, you're kind of looking 30 centimetre fish. You will get smaller fish around 22, 24. Upwards. The grayling in the Welsh Dee go through I think it's a 5 or 6 year cycle of kind of a life cycle. So they're obviously small. This year we're seeing bigger fish, and last year as well we've seen good numbers of good sized fish, and it's obviously. There's one fish born this year, one fish born next year, so it's kind of a continuous cycle. But you will see bigger fish coming up. It's something that the locals over there told me about. So in Wales, it's kind of a 6 year cycle that the grayling in the Welsh Dee anyway go through. I'm not sure about other parts, other countries and stuff, but yeah, I've had on the last trip, second last trip I was over there a couple of weeks ago. I had a fish for 45 centimeters, which is a very good fish for over
Lovely.
there. Kind of mid 30s to kind of low 40s would be your kind of average size grayling. They put up still put up great fight. They love to stick out all their fins and hold that water while you're playing them. So sometimes you think you have a bigger fish on than you do, but it's just they're just sticking those fins out and just holding in the current. So
Because they're not as spooky as trout, are they easier in that sense?
no, like they can be very fussy. You have to, you could be fishing. I can be fishing three nymphs there, pairs of caddis, an egg fly, and maybe say squirmy worm or whatever else I might be fishing. Those I could be catching fish, might get 5 or 6 fish next to all of a sudden just stops, and I might think, oh sure, I just need to move. There's no more fish there. Well, sometimes what you need to do is actually change one fly or change two flies. They kind of get fussy and they get sick of seeing the same flies. You might pass through maybe 30 casts, maybe pick up 6 fish, but you might have passed 30 fish in those 30 casts. And those, say if there is 30 fish there, they've seen those flies, so they're like they don't want them. So just making a small change can make a big difference in terms of continuing on your catch rate. So
And what kind of water are you targeting?
at the moment, if I was going over, I'd be kind of watching the temperatures, but like I would always be trying to fish the tail ends of the runs down into the flat glides below. In the next couple of weeks, as this sort of cold spell coming in, what you're watching for is the colder nights, not so much the cold temperatures during the day. The cold nights is what kind of sets the salmon off as well as sets the grayling off.
Right.
Um, and you're looking kind of just at the flat glides below the bottom of your runs, or if you're Ving your run, you're kind of just fishing your side eddies. You want a water that has a bit of pace to it, but not too much at the same time, because you don't want your food going past the grayling too quick. Sometimes you have to give them time to see the food a little bit. So sometimes when you're nymphing and your nymphs are coming down, just before it goes below you, you might turn your rod this way. What that'll slow up the nymphs as they're coming by, and then you turn it back on, and the nymphs will pass through. But normally when you make that change, the grayling can latch on. So it's a little technique we learned in Italy, and it's very effective. Like so,
That sounds really good, actually. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
it's like turning the tap off and turning it back on, but it just slows up the nymphs for a few
Yeah.
minutes or for like a
Yeah.
few seconds, and then you just turn it back on. But sometimes it gives the grayling that chance to lock onto the flies. Especially the moment, as we know here, like there's leaves falling off the trees over there. It's just pure woodland either side of the river the whole way down.
Yeah.
So without winds, the river's just full of leaves. So every second or third catch, you're catching leaves. But you can imagine that if a grayling is, looking up the river, he's having all this different debris coming past him. And the nymph could be hidden behind the leaves. So sometimes slowing up the nymphs can be effective to let the grayling find the source of food. And you can, your catch rate comes on a little bit more. It works sometimes. It won't work every cast, but it's just
But it's a nice little trick to have in the armory.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we learned
It
over
really
in
is.
Italy. Alessandro Freschi, he showed us on the Cese River, I think, or the Sarca. Very effective. Even for trout, it's very effective too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It really makes sense. It's just like kind of, put the brakes on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just slowed up for a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Class.
just the tail end of your runs, and just work there. Even if you've a run there, just go halfway in and then just work there, and then maybe just work your way down till you find the grayling, and then we'll be doing that when we go over on the Wednesday before the competition, just to see where the grayling are holding and feeding, and then over a few practice sessions we'll be focused on that area to see then if this is where they're renowned to hold, and we won't waste time fishing the top of the runs or very down the drain.
And what I like about it, Mark, as well, is, if anybody's been nymphing, for trout, it's no different. You just might a few tweaks in terms of the flies maybe and a few of the methods, but yeah, away you go. Like you should be well set.
Yeah, just adjust your leaders and your flies and your approach a little bit, but after that, there's not a whole lot to it. Once you start catching them, it's like anything. Once you start catching them, trying a new technique, you won't be long mastering it as such, So
Yeah. Would you recommend a guide, or just even maybe going with somebody who's done it before, just to kind of give you the heads up? Is it?
if you wanted to wing it and do it yourself, you could. You can touch base with us here in Piscari Fly, and we give you plenty of information as we can, and flies for you and stuff like that, and try to put you in the right direction. We'll send you a few pins for maps, good beats to go to if you're going to the Welsh D, or if you're going to Norway or Slovenia or Slovakia or any of those places. We have information for them as well.
Do you organize trips to the D?
We're starting to organise them through the Piscari Fly Club.
Yeah,
So
brilliant.
we're starting
Yeah,
to slowly start taking that off the ground. We have been asked by a lot of members, and we're hoping to do some this January. But yeah, like I didn't travel too much this year. Had a few things going on, but like the last couple of years, I would normally travel 5 times a year to different countries. I've no problem anyone coming along if they wish to. So, but yeah, it's an easy trip. Like you could get a guide. As I'd recommend getting a guide anywhere in the world. Like there's no point having a guide every day. It's always worth getting a guide maybe for the first day to show you a few tips and tricks, show you the area, how to access the permits and everything like that. And then if you're there for a 4 day stint or whatever it may be, get him to show you where it would be beneficial to go for the following 3 days rather than getting a guide every day because you're kind of going to be doing the same thing with the guide. You might, even if you want to book them for the first day and then book them for the last day and have a bit of fishing by yourself in between just to kind of develop yourself and in terms of the fishing for the grading. So.
And it's so manageable. Like, you said, what was it? To Manchester, it's an hour from Manchester, and what's that? An hour flight or something? Probably like.
Yeah, it's about the last flight we went on was about 35 minutes, but between taxi, about 45 minutes. Your true check, getting out to the car hire probably takes 15-20 minutes from the airport. By the time the bus stops at all the 3 different terminals, car hire is very easy. I would recommend booking with your car 6, a decent car company. Some of the other car companies can be a bit difficult to deal with. But other than that, like you're on the road quick enough, an hour and 10 minutes down the road, you get your permit online. Make sure you have your UK rod license. Now, I've never been stopped, but I get it anyway to make sure I have no hassle when I'm fishing. Get that online as well.
it's not much actually.
It's gone up a little bit, but like a UK rod license for the day is £8. I think for the week it's £12. So, or you can get a yearly ticket as I do. So it's around 18 or something or 20, I think so.
Yeah, it really isn't much.
No.
What I was going to ask you there, just because we've been on about the whales, but you did mention it. Do you ever bother going up to Scotland and the Tweed or the Teviot?
Yeah, the Tweed. I was planning a couple of years ago and then COVID hit. I was going to travel to Belfast and get the ferry across to Stranraer. You can fly up if you want, but then you've car hire and stuff in the mix. The ferry is quite affordable. I know you have to travel to Belfast, but if you're willing to do it, it's probably the best way. There is a river Neath or Night over there, I think Nith. There's some fabulous fishing on that, some big grayling. There's a Lord something I had inquired about getting access into this estate, and there's actually no problem during the winter months. During the summer months, it's a bit more difficult, but the autumn, winter months, I think the day tickets are only £10, and the quality grayling fishing was.
There's some very big grayling up around there, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have a few contacts up there that I've spoke to before, doing some homework, and it's on the bucket list to go up there soon. So.
You're looking at a chance of maybe a 50 centimeter one there, aren't you?
Oh yeah, there's some. I have pictures of some grayling that the guys up there or people that fish up there that I talked to, like the 3.5 up to £4 grayling, even bigger than £4, like so.
Yeah.
They're you're looking at trophy grayling, like so.
Yeah.
Tell us about, Mark, then just the Hannock Grayling competition or Grayling Festival that's started and it's getting more popular the last few years. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, I think it's been going on for about 10 years. I only got involved about 4 or 5 years ago. I was going on a few practice trips with Peter, Dave, and Robbie Phelan over and back to the Welsh Sea. And all of a sudden, I think it was around the year Tasmania had the World Fly Fishing Championships was on. There was a good few UK teams and Welsh teams going over. There was a Welsh and a Scottish and England team going over, and a lot of their members were actually fishing the Welsh Sea. And it was around the same time. So I got in then to fish that. There was a few team spots came available, so I got in with my team at the time and been fishing it ever since and regular trips. But it's Hugh Morgan and from Daiwa you have Dylan Roberts and the Caddick Club. Dylan Roberts is the vice chairman, absolutely lovely man. He's a pleasure to go over and even go out for a meal with and deal. Even fish with as well. Between him and Hugh, they do a lot of the organisation, between a few other guys that are there in the club. Then you have Frank Hannock from Hannock Fishing. He supplies he sponsors the event, and it's called the Hannock Grayling Festival. You've teams from Czech Republic, Belgium, France, Italy, Norway, of course ourselves as well, Isle of Man, Scotland and Wales and England. There's probably a few other countries there as well, but this year we're back up to 36 three-man teams, so there's going to be over 100 competitors. We normally stay in the Hans Hotel in Llangollen. We stay there. Most of the teams stay there. And if you're late getting your entry fee in, there might be room in the hotel, so you'll stay in kind of an Airbnb nearby or something like that. But it's recommended to stay in the hotel as part of the whole competition. It's quite an affordable competition. It's around £330 for the three-man team. So about £110 per man. And it's all on the River Dee. Most of the competition water is between the Caddick Club and down to the top of the Llangollen water. So there's a beat this year below the town, and then another spot called Jenny's Tunnel. There's a beat just at Jenny's Tunnel above the town bridge. Again, you get the ferry or the flyover. We're getting the ferry this year just to bring the Jeep so we can pack up extra gear, fly time gear, without having to book in extra bags. The flights, but the ferries, it's grand for 3.5 hours, and it's not too bad. You can have no snooze on the way over. So,
and it sounds like a good festival. It's really grown in popularity. And who does well generally? Which teams or which countries?
Well, the Belgians do well. They won it last year and the year before. The year before, me and my team, I was fishing with Darius Simkis and Roger Fowler. We nearly took it off them that year. We were sitting after the 2 sessions on the Saturday, and we went into the last session. Me and Darius were fishing. Roger was controlling, and me and Darius had 17 fish to win the session. But we were drawn on place points with the Belgians. But I think I worked out the fish points were about 9 fish behind them. So between the fish we dropped in the 2 sessions on the Saturday, which happens, and the few fish we dropped on the Sunday, we might have had a chance, but that's the way it goes. That's the margin of error when you're fishing competitions. It's trying to keep that margin of error as low as possible, but you're always going to bump off fish and miss them or lose them and stuff like that. So
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Interesting on that one. The structure of it is that one of the team members will be acting as a controller, so there's no controllers brought in. But I often wondered about this, Mark. If you're controlling a team, it's very easy for you to see their methods, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the flies, everything. So
yeah,
same for us. But
it's kind of different. Let's say to a World or European Championships, where controller is an independent, or he's completely independent. He's not from another team, so he's it's not going to go beyond him unless he tells his own nation or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's completely different there because it can't be as secretive.
Yeah, no, it's like some lads don't really care. They're blatant enough. They arrive onto the beat and you're standing there waiting on them, or you might get lifted with them, or whatever it may be, and they just put the rods up against the trees and you'll see right there on a yellow squirmy or whatever they're on.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, you're not obviously going over and looking at the rod, but sometimes they might say, can you hand my rod, or do you mind bringing my rod up along? Because each angler's allowed 3 rods. And you're having a look at the flies, all right, and then you have an idea what they're catching on as well. So now I say to the lads that we keep the rods down, and we've little hair clips for our droppers to stop the fly spinning around the rod. So sometimes we put that on the fly. Little things, there's some flies that you're not going to hide.
You can't bait it out yet.
So you hopeful this year, Mark?
Yeah, this year we switched it up. Peter's been nagging me for the last couple of years to, get a team together. Our friend Rob Redmond over there we met a couple of years ago, he got a position, a team slot himself. So it's his home river. So, we've a lot of insight and information that way in terms of the beats. That there is beats that I haven't fished and Peter hasn't fished. But Rob had, a lot of insight to the river. So, yeah, look, Peter's won it 3 times. He's had top individual. He's had the biggest fish. I've been up there as well. And we got 3rd there 3 years ago and 2nd 2 years ago. And we've a good chance. We were over on a recent practice trip for 2 days. We put a lot, or 3 days, I think, and we put a lot of homework in. So, and we're constantly working on flies and getting our stuff together now. So, hopefully, if the draw goes well for the beats, and we have good controllers and stuff like that. Like, we might have a chance. So, we'll be in there to give it a go anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good fishing to be had no matter what. Anyway, tell us, Mark, before we let you go, you're obviously involved with Piscari with Peter as well. So you're heavily involved with fly fishing. Give us a bit about the background, where you grew up, where you fished, that kind of stuff.
I grew up in Rathrum, County Wicklow. I think Peter's late mother that passed away earlier this year, she would have been the first person to introduce me to a bit of fishing. She was minding me, I think, after school or something. My mom and dad were working, and she brought me into the local butchers in Rathrum. She was going in to get meat, cook dinner for the lads, but there was a Shakespeare telescopic spinning bait rod sitting in the window, and she bought it for me. I still have it somewhere out in the shed. It's gathered a lot of dust, and there's been a few bangs on it. But yeah, a few days later, I was only around 5 at the time, I think, 5 or 6. And my mom and dad and my granny brought us out to Animal Fishery there, just near Roundwood in Wicklow, to some sort of bait pond, and start catching a few fish. And I think Dad kind of carried it on for a few years, and then my uncle Tommy, who's Peter's father as well, they lived only up at top of our lane. Kind of, they were our next door neighbours really, for many, many years. Tommy brought me up to the quarry sand pit, kind of like a sand beach on the Avonmore River, and introduced me to the fly fishing and just casting there and learning how to fish. He won some fly rod, Booger Sea, carbon fly rod in some auction or something for a charity, and gave it to me. And since then, taught me how to cast out in my back field, and just kind of spent a few evenings doing that myself every week. Tommy brought me out on a weekly basis. Got involved with the Rathrum trout anglers. Got involved then in kind of Leinster youth fishing championship competitions, like qualifiers. And then kind of just took off in 2010. I got on my first Irish youth team to go to the World Championships in Slovakia, which is where I got my first Graylings. And yeah, just developed since then. I obviously went to college and for a few years, so I kind of stepped back off it. I kind of took up golf. And then one evening I was heading out for a tea time or one day, and the other lad rang me, and he was asking me, was I coming down for, I hadn't spoke to Peter in 2 or 3 years, I think, and just the way things were with college. And he'd asked me to come down to go for a few jars with him and a bit of food, and we go fishing the next day. I told him I had no gear, no flies anyway. I had gear in the house I was renting, and so I went back in, threw the clubs in, grabbed what I had of fishing gear, and went down. And around at that time, I think Peter was just getting into hack hooks and beads at the time. He's doing a lot of fly tying and selling flies to customers and stuff. And yeah, I got hooked the next day. I think we were fishing the Dean and Dinan in Castlecomer and in Kilkenny. And I went back with hooks and beads and went on to a few websites and bought some fly tying material. And that was it, start back tying. And ever since then, so just been back fishing with Peter, got involved with the shop, and what started around Piscari Fly around that time, around 2015, 2016, I think. And yeah, I was saying to you there that, we started doing the Galway Fly Fair and a few different shows, and we started off with 2 or 3 shopping bags worth of gear and a laptop bag, and we'd sell what we had, and then we'd reinvest all the money back in and just build it and build it and build it. And that's what we've done. So we're constantly working on products that we're working on a range of rods at the moment that we've, from our years of experience in fishing different brands of rods. We're building the Venator range at the moment. We have our Dry X range. Different products that are going very well for us. Outside of that, then it's interesting. Just we try best to only supply products or work on products that we ourselves would use, so that we can stand behind the products. We don't sell something unless a specific customer wants something. We'll do our best to go and get it for them, or we'll always point them in the right direction. But we always try to, there's no product in the shop down there at the moment that we can't stand behind and say that we wouldn't use ourselves. We can back up what that product is useful for or beneficial to the angler or the customer. So, and that's kind of our ethos that we've always had. So,
and I presume the golf clubs haven't seen the light of day ever since.
I was just going to ask.
No, I think me and Peter get out maybe once a year now for a game of golf. I think we were out last year. We played for a fiver, and he has my fiver, so I'll probably win it back this year. So.
And has your golfing game suffered?
Yeah, it has. I was golfing about 4 days a week, and I think the driving range 2 evenings a week. I was getting fairly into it, and that one phone call going out the gates of my house in State and Carlow
Yeah.
put a
Saved you.
stop to
Yeah, look at all the money you save by switching to fishing.
that. Yeah, the fishing gear is more expensive than the golf balls, anyway.
Yeah,
I think so,
there's
yeah.
a lot more flies you can get. Tell us, Mark, just before we wrap up, how was 2024 for you?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I done a lot more lake fishing this year than I did rivers. Don't think any of the rivers down my area here in Southeast, they didn't take off till around the 13th of May, I think. And there was a lot of floods. The rivers were either in flood or they were dead low. And the fishing was very slow because of it. The rivers were up and down, so the trout were kind of sulking a lot. We done very little coaching this year as well. I probably got out maybe twice from the start of the season. Normally, mid-February, I'd go down to fish some of the rivers in Cork up until the middle of May. Got out twice, I think. Fished the Leinster rivers up in Kells Blackwater that I helped organise for the club. Just mainly on the lakes because of that, and the rivers kind of took off after that. I was invited to go fish on the Five Nations team for Ireland over in France near Lyon, up in the mountains with the Maribel Club, I think. Myself, Campbell Bird, Shane Callan, and Roger Fowler. So that was around the end of August, I think, and we brought home the gold. And Campbell was top individual,
well done. Yeah,
second overall. So that kind of put a nice cap on the season for me. Had some great evenings out, evening fishing for the trout here on my local rivers here in Durrow, which would be upper stretches of the Nore. And other than that, it's just I've enjoyed the lake more so this year. Out buzzer fishing in Carb, bit of mayfly fishing, mayfly in Imstead and Sheelan. I only kind of caught the late end of that and some of the spent fishing on Sheelan. So, and then moved over to Carb then at the end of the season then for the All Ireland Taffy Lake Championships then. So we done a few practice trips over and back for that. So, so it hasn't been too bad. And now looking forward to the Grayling. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on there. Fair play to you.
So hopefully get a few more trips in next year or so and get abroad. And Austria is on my bucket list for the August, September time next year for the Grayling. So there's some fantabulous Grayling fishing out there to be had. So
which river? The Trone?
Yeah, there's that one, and then there's one other I think as well. I can't remember the name of it now, but I've been contacting a guide over there, and he's kind of trying to set it up for us. So there's me and a couple of lads that want to go, so we'll try and make a trip across. But I just need to get that trophy Grayling. So I've lost a couple of trophy Graylings over the last couple of years. So it's just wouldn't mind going over to see some of those bigger Graylings. So
well, listen, as John Girac, God rest him, said, don't plan for the fishing trip of a lifetime. Plan for a lifetime of fishing trips.
Exactly.
And that's the way to do it. Mark, before we let you go, everybody we have on the show, we ask them. So I'm going to ask you now, what has been your most memorable fish on the fly?
I've had many. One that kind of sticks out to me would be we were overfishing the Sarca Cup or the Piala Cup in Italy, 2017, 2018, I think. We fished for 2 or 3 years in a row. I was practicing. Peter was with his fishing partner Dave, and I was with my fishing partner Roger. Me and Peter were going up through this gorgy area. It was just boulders after boulders, some boulders the size of houses, as you would know from the Carb. But these were sticking up out of the river. But yeah, I fished my way up along and came to this really heavy turbulent run, put on a 4mm nymph of some sort of yoke I tied to try out, and locked into this brown trout. He was about 7.5 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And he took me for a spin. So
what rod were you on? What weight rod were you on at the time?
The 11'2" weight was working the best for us in Italy. I don't know if I was on it that day. I might have had a Marriott 10'3" weight at the time.
You might have been really beefy on a 3-weight rod. Yeah.
He took me for a spin down the river. I remember Peter was on the other side of the river and I was this side, and Peter got up past the island where the turbulent run was, and I hooked into the fish. And I remember Peter was trying to get on video, and I just remember I was just bunny hopping down along the rocks the whole way down the river. About 250 meters. I tried to land the fish 3 times. I think on the 3rd or 4th attempt I got him. He just did not like the look of the net. So, but he was a really solid fish, and he was very good length, like, and I needed a breather after that one. So, but
yeah.
you can imagine the funny hopping from rock to rock the whole way down along the river. There was no way I could even get into the shoreline to run down along. It was just beeline it down the middle of the river. So, but yeah, good fun. So,
well, Mark, thanks a million for joining us. It's been really interesting chatting to you. Some great information there about the Grayling. I think definitely it's whetted a lot of people's appetite for trying it out even. And like you say, get in touch with yourselves at Piscari. You'll have, if you have any questions or any information or tips or insights that people want, I'm sure you'll help them, point them in the right direction.
Yeah, of course. I'll never steer you wrong anyways.
Yeah, definitely. No, it sounds like a nice trip to try and do sometime. Mark Driver, thanks a million. Best of luck with the Hannock competition as well, and for 2025 as well, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. Thanks a million for joining us.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Our thanks to Mark for joining us on the show. And don't forget to rate, review and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.